My name is Olivia Matthews, and I'm about to tell you how a routine pediatrician visit destroyed everything I thought I knew about motherhood. When Dr. Brennan looked up from my 6-year-old daughter Emma's chart and asked, "Have her eyes always been this blue?" my world tilted on its axis. You see, Emma was born with brown eyes. I have the photos to prove it. But sitting there in that sterile office, bright blue eyes stared back at me from what I'd always believed was my daughter's face. The DNA test I secretly ordered would reveal a truth so devastating that it would unravel 6 years of bedtime stories, first steps, and whispered, "I love yous," exposing a conspiracy that reached from hospital delivery rooms to prison cells. What would you do if you discovered the child you'd raised, loved, and would die for wasn't actually yours, and that somewhere out there, another mother had been mourning her stolen baby every single day? If you're watching this video right now, I'd love to know where you're from. Drop it in the comment section below. Hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories like this. The morning started like any other in the Matthews household. I was braiding Emma's hair for school, humming that old song my mother used to sing, when the sunlight caught her face at just the right angle. I paused, my fingers still tangled in her dark locks. "Emma, honey, look at me for a second." She turned, and I found myself staring into eyes that seemed wrong. They were blue. Not the deep brown I'd kissed goodnight for 6 years, but a clear, striking blue that belonged on someone else's child. "What's wrong, Mommy?" Emma asked, her voice carrying that hint of concern children get when they sense adult worry. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just the lights playing tricks on me." But even as I said it, my hands trembled slightly as I finished her braid. I told myself I was being ridiculous. Eyes don't just change color overnight. Not at 6 years old. I'd been working too many late nights at the marketing firm, stress-eating takeout with Daniel while Emma slept. That had to be it. The doubt might have faded if not for Dr. Brennan's reaction at Emma's routine checkup 3 days later. "Olivia," she said, flipping through Emma's chart with a small frown. "Have Emma's eyes always been this blue?" The question hit me like ice water. Daniel shifted in his chair beside me, his hand finding mine. "They've always been. I mean, they were brown when she was born. I managed." Dr. Brennan looked up sharply. "Brown? You're certain?" "Of course I'm certain."
Why?
"What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," the doctor said carefully, but her eyes lingered on Emma, who was playing with a stethoscope on the examination table. "It's just unusual for such a dramatic change to occur this late. Eye color typically stabilizes by age 3. The drive home was silent except for Emma's chatter about the stickers Dr. Brennan had given her. Daniel's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. When we got home, I went straight to the nursery closet where I kept Emma's baby albums. I pulled out the hospital photos first. There she was, minutes old, screaming and perfect with a tiny pink hat and brown eyes. Definitely brown. I flipped through more photos. 1 week old, brown. 1 month, brown. 6 months, still brown. But when had they changed? I spread the photos across our bed, creating a timeline. Daniel found me there an hour later, surrounded by pictures, my laptop open to medical websites about heterochromia, genetic mutations, and childhood eye color changes. "Liv, you need to stop," he said softly, sitting beside me. "Kids change." My cousin's eyes went from blue to green. "When he was 2, Daniel. Not 6. And not from brown to blue. That doesn't happen." "So, what are you saying? That she's not our daughter?" The words hung between us like a blade. I couldn't answer because the thought was too insane, too impossible. Yet something cold was settling in my chest, a mother's instinct screaming that something was fundamentally wrong. Over the next week, I found myself studying Emma in ways that made me feel like a terrible mother. The way she held her fork. Had she always been left-handed? The way she laughed, that little hiccup at the end. Was that new? She'd always been a quiet child, but lately, she seemed even more withdrawn, playing elaborate games with her dolls where they were looking for their real homes. "Mrs. Matthews?" Emma's teacher, Miss Patterson, called me aside at pickup one afternoon. I wanted to check in about Emma. She's been asking some unusual questions lately. "What kind of questions?" "Well, yesterday she asked me if people can belong to the wrong family by accident." And today during story time, she asked what happens to children who get lost and never find their way back. My mouth went dry. What did you tell her? I assured her that families always find each other. But I wanted you to know, in case there's something troubling her at home. That night, I watched Emma eat her spaghetti. She'd always hated spaghetti, but suddenly she was eating it without complaint. When did that change? When did everything change? Daniel, I said after Emma was in bed. I need to talk to Clara. My sister Clara was a nurse, pragmatic and unflappable. If anyone could talk me out of this spiral, it would be her. But when I called her and explained everything, she was quiet for a long moment. Liv, she finally said, trust your gut. You know your child better than anyone. If something feels wrong, but what am I supposed to do? Tell everyone I think my daughter isn't my daughter because her eyes changed color? Have you considered a DNA test? The suggestion knocked the wind out of me. That's crazy. Is it? It's a simple cheek swab. If it comes back as a match, you can put this all behind you. I found myself on parenting forums that night, reading story after story. Most were about fathers discovering affairs, but one caught my eye. Hospital mistake. We raised the wrong child for 3 years. The top comment read, start with a simple DNA test. Don't assume anything. For 3 days, I carried the idea like a stone in my stomach. Then Emma had a nightmare. She came padding into our room at 2 a.m., tears streaming down her face. Mommy, I had a dream about a lady with red hair. She was singing to me, but I couldn't find her. I held her tight, feeling her little heart race against mine. It was just a dream, baby, but it felt real, like a memory that got lost. The next morning, I ordered the DNA test kit. When it arrived, I stared at the box for hours. Such a small thing to potentially destroy everything. Daniel found me crying over it in the kitchen. Olivia, what is this? I need to know, Daniel. I need to know she's ours. His face went through a series of emotions, anger, hurt, fear, before settling on something I couldn't quite read. This is insane. You gave birth to her. I was there. Were you? You were in and out, Daniel. I had complications, remember? I was so drugged, and then the recovery. My voice broke. I just need to know. He was quiet for a long moment then. Fine. But when this comes back positive, you need to get help. This paranoia isn't healthy. That night, while Emma slept, I swabbed her cheek with shaking hands. She stirred but didn't wake, mumbling something that sounded like Melinda before settling back into sleep. I told myself I'd misheard. The next morning, I drove to the lab myself. The technician was kind, professional, didn't ask questions. She said results would take 5 to 7 business days. It's a formality, I told my reflection in the rearview mirror. Just to put this to rest. But even as I said it, I knew. Somewhere deep in my bones, in that primal place where mothers know their children, I already knew that everything was about to change. The waiting was agony. 7 days stretched like 7 years, each morning bringing fresh anxiety as I checked my email before Daniel woke up. I went through the motions of normalcy, work meetings, school pickups, dinner preparations, while inside, I was unraveling. Emma seemed to sense the tension. She became even quieter, spending hours drawing pictures of houses with too many windows and families where no one quite matched. One evening, I found her staring at herself in the bathroom mirror. What are you doing, sweetheart? Looking for her, Emma said simply. Looking for who? The girl who's supposed to be here. My blood ran cold. You're supposed to be here, Emma. You're exactly where you belong. She met my eyes in the mirror, those impossible blue eyes, and said, sometimes I dream I'm somewhere else. With different people. Is that wrong? I pulled her into a hug, perhaps too tightly. Dreams are just dreams, baby. But that night, she asked Daniel, do people stay the same inside forever? Or do we change into different people? Daniel, who'd been distant all week, barely looked up from his laptop. We're always ourselves, Emma. Now finish your homework. The space between Daniel and me had grown into a chasm. He worked late every night, came to bed after I was asleep, left before I woke. When we did talk, it was about logistics, who would pick up Emma, what to have for dinner, anything but the test we were waiting for. On the 5th day, Emma mentioned something that made my heart stop. "Mommy, remember when Mr. Harold taught me to tie my shoes?" I was washing dishes and nearly dropped a plate. "Who's Mr. Harold, honey?" Emma frowned, looking confused. I don't know. I just remembered someone showing me the bunny ears method, but it wasn't you or Daddy. "I taught you to tie your shoes, Emma. Remember? We practiced on your rainbow laces."
Oh.
She looked troubled. "Then who is Mr. Harold?" That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I went through every photo, every video, looking for anyone named Harold. Nothing. When I asked Daniel, he snapped. "For God's sake, Olivia, she probably heard the name at school or on TV. Stop looking for mysteries where there aren't any." "Then why are you so angry?" "Because my wife thinks our daughter isn't ours. Because you've turned our home into some kind of investigation scene. Because..." He stopped, running his hands through his hair. "Just stop, okay? Please." But I couldn't stop. Especially not after I found the receipt. I wasn't snooping. I was looking for Emma's immunization records for a school form when I found it tucked in Daniel's drawer. A hotel receipt from 6 years ago, dated 3 weeks after Emma was born. The Marriott downtown. He told me he was at a conference in Boston that week. Why would he lie about where he was 3 weeks after our daughter was born? Unless the email came at 11:47 p.m. on the 7th day. Daniel was asleep beside me, or pretending to be. My phone buzzed with the notification from Gene Tech Laboratories. My hand shook so badly I could barely unlock my phone. The email was professional, clinical. "Dear Mrs. Matthews, your DNA test results are now available. Please log in to your secure account to view them." I slipped out of bed and locked myself in the bathroom, sitting on the cold tile floor with my back against the door. The portal loaded slowly, each second an eternity. Then there it was in black and white. Probability of maternity, 0% probability of paternity, 0% conclusion. The tested adults are not the biological parents of the tested child. The words blurred as tears came hard and fast. I pressed a towel to my mouth to muffle the sobs, my whole body shaking. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. I gave birth to her. I remembered the pain, the pushing, the first cry. Or did I? The memories were hazy, fragmented. I'd had complications, lost a lot of blood. The emergency C-section, the drugs, the days of recovery where everything was a blur. I don't know how long I sat there, but eventually Daniel knocked. "Olivia? Are you okay?" I opened the door, and he took one look at my face and knew. "The results." I nodded, unable to speak. He was silent for a long moment then. "There must be a mistake. Labs make mistakes all the time. You were the one who gave birth, Olivia." "I was there." "Were you?" My voice was raw. "You kept leaving. Your mother was there more than you were. And that receipt, Daniel, the hotel receipt from when you said you were in Boston?" His face went pale. It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" He sank onto the bed, head in his hands. I couldn't handle it. The NICU, the machines, your recovery. I needed a night away. Just one night to breathe. I'm not proud of it. "NICU?" Emma wasn't in the NICU. She was healthy. Daniel looked up at me then, and something in his eyes made my blood run cold. She was healthy. Our daughter was healthy. The weight of those words, our daughter, not Emma, crashed over me. The next morning, I called Clara. She came over immediately, took one look at me, and pulled me into a hug. "Tell me everything." I showed her the results, told her about Daniel's behavior, the hotel, Emma's strange questions. Clara listened, her nursing training keeping her calm and analytical. "We need a second test," she said. "Different lab. And this time, test blood types too. If there was a hospital mix-up." "This wasn't a mix-up," I interrupted. "Something happened. Something Daniel knows but won't tell me." Clara was quiet then. "Liv, I need to tell you something. When Emma was born, I was working a shift in pediatrics. I wasn't on your floor, but I heard things. There was talk about a situation in maternity that week. A baby that didn't make it, and some confusion with the paperwork. My heart stopped. What kind of confusion? I don't know the details. But Nurse Bennett, she was on your rotation. She left really suddenly afterward. Like, cleared out her locker and never came back. I need to find her. Liv, maybe you should prepare yourself for the possibility that. That what? That the baby I've raised for 6 years isn't mine? I'm already there, Clara. What I need to know is whose child she is. And what happened to mine. The second test kit arrived 2 days later. This time I also ordered a blood type test. Daniel refused to participate. I'm not enabling this delusion, he said coldly. It's not a delusion if the DNA says. The DNA is wrong. He slammed his hand on the counter, making me jump. Emma is our daughter. End of discussion. But that night, I heard him on the phone with someone, his voice low and urgent. We need to talk. It's happening. She knows. When I confronted him, he claimed it was a work call. But the next day, his mother called me. Olivia, dear. Daniel tells me you're having some concerns about Emma. Margaret Matthews' voice was smooth as silk, but there was an edge to it I'd never noticed before. I'm sure Daniel told you about the DNA test. These home tests are so unreliable. Why don't you come for dinner Sunday? We can talk about it as a family. Margaret, did something happen when Emma was born? Something with the hospital? The pause was just a beat too long. What a strange question. You were there, weren't you? After I hung up, I knew with absolute certainty. They all knew something. Daniel, his mother, maybe others. There was a truth buried 6 years ago, and Emma, whoever she really was at the center of it. The second test came back with the same results, but this time with additional information that made my stomach drop. Emma's blood type was AB negative. Daniel was O positive. I was a positive. It was genetically impossible for us to have produced an AB negative child. I sat in my car in the laboratory parking lot, staring at the paper until the words blurred. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a lab error. Emma wasn't our biological child. But if she wasn't ours, whose was she? That night, sleep brought no peace. Fragments of memory from Emma's birth kept surfacing, the emergency C-section after hours of labor, the sound of a baby crying that seemed to stop too soon, voices saying we need to take her, the drugged haze where time meant nothing. I remembered asking for my baby and someone saying, she needs special care. But then Emma was in my arms, perfect and healthy, and I was too exhausted and grateful to question the timeline that didn't quite make sense. I woke at 3 a.m. with a sudden, crystal-clear memory. A nurse leaning over me, her face obscured by surgical mask, whispering, "We'll take care of everything, Mrs. Matthews. Just rest now." The next morning, I drove to St. Mary's Hospital while Daniel took Emma to school. The records department was in the basement, fluorescent lights humming over rows of filing cabinets. I need all records from my daughter's birth, I told the clerk. March 15th, 2018. The woman typed efficiently. I show you had a cesarean delivery, recovery time of 5 days. Would you like the full medical record? Everything, including nursing notes and staff assignments. She hesitated. For the complete staff records, you'll need to submit a formal request. Legal department handles those. Why would I need legal approval to see who was in the room when I gave birth? Hospital policy, ma'am, especially for records over 5 years old. I filled out the forms, but something in her expression told me I wouldn't be getting those records anytime soon. At home, I started my own investigation. Nurse Bennett, Clara had mentioned she'd left suddenly. I found 3 Jennifer Bennetts in the state, but only one had been a maternity nurse. Her LinkedIn profile showed she'd left St. Mary's on March 22nd, 2018, exactly 1 week after Emma was born. She now worked at a small clinic 3 hours away. I called the clinic. I'm looking for Jennifer Bennett. I was a patient of hers 6 years ago. I'm sorry, Ms. Bennett no longer works here. She left about 2 years ago. Do you have forwarding information? I'm not able to share that information. Dead end after dead end. But I couldn't stop. I spent hours online, searching for something, anything. And then, in a deep dive through old news archives, I found it. March 20th, 2018. Local woman claims hospital lost newborn daughter. The article was brief, buried in the back pages. Melinda Hughes, 26, had filed a complaint claiming her daughter had disappeared from St. Mary's Hospital nursery. Hospital administrators stated the claim was unfounded and that Ms. Hughes had been confused due to medical complications. The case was dropped when Ms. Hughes failed to provide sufficient evidence. My hands trembled as I searched for more information about Melinda Hughes. I found a Facebook profile, private, but the profile picture showed a woman with distinctive red hair. Red hair, like the woman Emma dreamed about. Emma had been acting stranger each day. She'd started collecting things, small objects she'd hide in her jewelry box. When I asked about them, she said, "They're for when I go home." When I reminded her she was home, she'd gotten a distant look and said, "My other home. The one in my dreams." That evening at dinner, Emma suddenly asked, "What if babies got mixed up at the hospital? Like, what if someone took home the wrong baby?" Daniel's fork clattered to his plate. "Where did you hear about that?" "Nowhere. I just wondered, would the real parents ever find them?" I reached for her hand. "Emma, honey, is something bothering you?" She looked at me with those blue eyes, Melinda's eyes, and said, "Sometimes I feel like I'm supposed to be somewhere else. Like I'm visiting here, but my real life is waiting." That night, Daniel finally cracked. "I need to tell you something," he said, standing in our bedroom doorway like a stranger. "About when Emma was born." I sat up, my heart racing. "You knew. You've known this whole time." "No, not exactly." He came in, closed the door, sat on the edge of the bed like he might bolt at any moment. "There were complications. With the baby. Our baby." "What complications?" "Emma was healthy." "Not Emma." His voice broke. "Our daughter. Our biological daughter. There were problems with her heart. They took her for surgery, but..." The room spun. "She died? Our baby died. They said she didn't make it. Mom was there. She handled everything while you were recovering. You were so sick, Olivia. You'd lost so much blood. You were delirious for days." "And Emma?" "Where did Emma come from?" "I don't know." The words exploded out of him. "Mom said," she said, "the baby recovered. That it was a miracle. She handled all the paperwork while I was with you in the ICU. By the time you were conscious enough to hold her, everything was done. And she looked like she could be ours." "You knew she wasn't our baby?" "I suspected. But I told myself I was being paranoid. That trauma makes you think crazy things. And you were so happy, so in love with her immediately. How could I take that away? How could I tell you our daughter died when you were holding a baby you believed was yours?" I felt like I was drowning. "Your mother did this. She switched the babies." "I don't know that for sure." "Daniel, stop. Stop protecting her." A woman named Melinda Hughes reported her baby missing the same week. A baby girl, born the same day as ours. His face went white. "Melinda Hughes? You know that name?" He stood abruptly, pacing to the window. "Mom mentioned her once. Said she was a drug addict who'd abandoned her baby. That social services had taken the child." "And you believed that?" "I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe that Emma came to us legitimately, that somehow everything was okay." He turned to face me, tears streaming down his face. "I couldn't lose you both, Olivia. Our daughter was dead, and you almost died too. When Mom put that baby in your arms and you smiled for the first time in days. I just couldn't." The next morning, while Daniel took Emma to Saturday soccer practice, I made a decision. I messaged Melinda Hughes on Facebook. "Ms. Hughes, my name is Olivia Matthews. I had a daughter at St. Mary's Hospital on March 15th, 2018. I need to speak with you urgently about something that happened that week." Her response came within minutes. "Is this about my baby?" We arranged to meet at a coffee shop the next day. I told Daniel I was going to see Clara, but I think he knew I was lying.
"He didn't try to stop me."
Melinda Hughes looked older than her 32 years. She had the hollow look of someone who'd been grieving for a long time. But when she saw me, something sparked in her eyes. Hope. "You know something about my daughter," she said. It wasn't a question. I pulled out my phone, hands shaking, and showed her a recent photo of Emma. Melinda's hand flew to her mouth, a sob escaping. "That's her. Oh my God, that's my baby. I knew it. I knew she didn't die." "They told you she died?" "They told me she was taken by social services because I failed a drug test. But I'd been clean for 2 years. I demanded to see the test results, to see the social worker, but they kept stonewalling. Then they said there'd been a mistake, that my baby had passed away from complications. They couldn't even keep their story straight." I showed her the DNA results. "The child I've been raising, she's not biologically mine." Melinda stared at the papers, tears streaming down her face. "Where is she? Can I see her? I need time to figure out what happened, to understand how." 6 years, Melinda interrupted. "I've been mourning her for 6 years. They told me I was crazy, that I was confused, that the drugs had messed with my memory. But I knew. A mother knows." She pulled out a small photo album from her purse. "These are from the day she was born, before they took her." I looked at the photos, a newborn with a thick crop of dark hair and distinctive blue eyes. The same eyes that looked at me every morning across the breakfast table. "There was a birthmark," Melinda said quietly, "behind her left ear, shaped like a little crescent moon." My blood ran cold. Emma had that exact birthmark. I'd kissed it 1,000 times. That evening, Emma was playing in her room when I heard her talking to her dolls. "Don't worry," she was saying. "Your real mommy will find you." Sometimes mommies lose their babies, but they always come back. They never stop looking. I stood in her doorway, watching her create elaborate scenarios where lost children found their way home. She looked up and saw me. "Mommy, why are you crying?" I knelt beside her, pulling her into my arms. "Emma, do you remember when you told me about the lady with red hair? The one from your dreams?" She nodded against my shoulder. "What else do you remember about her?" Emma pulled back, her face serious. "She smelled like oranges." And she hummed a song. I don't know the words, but sometimes I hum it too. She began to hum a melody I'd never heard before, haunting and beautiful. "She was sad," Emma continued. "In my dream, she's always crying and saying she's sorry." "Why is she sorry, Mommy?" "I held my daughter, but she wasn't my daughter, was she? And made a decision that would shatter multiple worlds." "Emma, honey, we need to take another special test. Like the one we did with the cotton swab, remember?" "Why?" "Because sometimes families are more complicated than we think." That night, I called Clara. I found her, the biological mother. "Clara, what do I do?" My sister was quiet for a long moment. "You do the right thing, Liv. Whatever that looks like, you do the right thing." But what was the right thing? How do you untangle 6 years of love, of bedtime stories and scraped knees and first days of school? How do you tell a child that everything she knows is built on a lie? And perhaps the hardest question of all, how do you give back a child who is never yours to keep? I called Melinda the next morning, my voice barely steady. I have your daughter." The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Then, barely a whisper, "Is this real? Please, God, tell me this is real." The DNA test I took. Emma isn't biologically mine or my husband's. She was born on March 15th, 2018, at St. Mary's. She has blue eyes, dark hair, and... I swallowed hard. A crescent moon birthmark behind her left ear. The sound that came through the phone was primal, 6 years of grief breaking like a dam. I stood in my kitchen, gripping the counter, listening to a stranger sob for the child I'd tucked into bed last night. Her name, Melinda finally managed. I named her Luna. For the birthmark. For the moon. Luna. Not Emma. The floor seemed to shift beneath me. We agreed to meet again, this time at a park 2 towns over. Clara insisted on coming with me, her protective presence a comfort. Melinda arrived carrying a worn folder and a small, faded stuffed bunny. "This was hers," she said, clutching the bunny. She only had it for 5 days, but I kept it. Kept everything. She opened the folder with shaking hands. Inside were documents I wasn't prepared for. Hospital records from her delivery, a birth certificate for Luna Marie Hughes, and photos. So many photos from those 5 days. There was one of Melinda holding her newborn, both asleep, that made my chest ache. The love was so evident, so pure. Tell me about the birth, I said. Melinda's story came in halts and starts. She'd been clean for 2 years, working at a grocery store, preparing for her baby alone after the father left. The birth was normal, Luna was healthy. But Melinda had a reaction to medication that left her disoriented for a day. When I was finally clear-headed, they said social services had taken her because I'd failed a drug test. I demanded to see the test, the social worker, anything. But they kept giving me different stories. First she was in foster care, then she'd been adopted, then she looked at me with haunted eyes. Then they said she died. Complications, they said. But I never saw a body. Never got a death certificate. My mother-in-law, I said quietly. She was on the hospital board. She arranged something. Clara leaned forward. Melinda, did anyone offer you money? Try to get you to sign anything? There was a woman. Well-dressed, older. She came to my room and said there had been a mistake, that my baby had severe health problems. She said if I signed some papers, the hospital would cover all the medical expenses, give me a settlement for my loss. I refused. I may have been poor, but I wasn't selling my baby. Margaret Matthews. It had to be. She had your daughter, Melinda continued, her voice stronger now. The healthy baby. They took my Luna and gave her to you because your baby. She stopped, seeing my face crumble. Our baby died, I whispered. Heart complications. I only just learned this. My husband knew something was wrong, but he couldn't face it. We sat in silence, 2 mothers bound by an unspeakable tragedy. That evening, I tested the waters with Emma. We were reading bedtime stories when I asked, Emma, what do you think about the name Luna? She sat up immediately, eyes wide. That's my moon name. Your moon name? Sometimes in my dreams, someone calls me Luna. They say, Luna, my little moon. But that's silly, right? I'm Emma. Names are funny things, I said carefully. Sometimes people have more than one name. She considered this. Like how Grandma Margaret calls me dear, but you call me sweetheart. Something like that. She settled back against me, then said quietly, Mommy, the lady with red hair in my dreams? She calls me Luna. She says she lost me, but never stopped looking. I held her tighter, my heart breaking into pieces I'd never be able to reassemble. The confrontation with Daniel came that night after Emma was asleep. I told him everything, meeting Melinda, the matching birthmark, Emma's dreams. You met with her? He was pacing our bedroom like a caged animal. Without telling me? You've been lying to me for 6 years, Daniel. You don't get to be indignant. I was protecting you. You were protecting yourself. And your mother. Leave her out of this. She orchestrated this entire thing. She stole a baby from a vulnerable woman and gave her to us. You don't know that for certain. Stop it, I screamed, not caring if I woke Emma. Stop defending her. Stop pretending this is okay. A mother has been grieving for 6 years while we raised her child. Daniel sank onto the bed, head in his hands. So what now? You're going to just hand Emma over? Destroy her life? I don't know what I'm going to do. But we can't keep living this lie. It's not a lie. We're her parents. We're the only parents she's ever known. But we're not her parents, Daniel. The DNA. Fuck the DNA. He stood abruptly, tears streaming down his face. I changed her diapers, I taught her to ride a bike. I held her through every fever and nightmare. That makes me her father, not some test. And what about Melinda? What about her rights? She's a stranger. She's Emma's mother. You're Emma's mother. We stood facing each other, both crying, both right, both wrong. There was no good answer, no solution that wouldn't shatter someone's world. The next day, I did something I never thought I'd do, I hired a private investigator. If we were going to untangle this mess, I needed the whole truth. Every detail of what happened in that hospital 6 years ago. Meanwhile, Emma was unraveling in her own way. Her teacher called, concerned. Emma had been telling the other children that she had two mommies, not in the modern family sense, but insisting she had another mother somewhere who was looking for her. She's also been hoarding food, Miss Patterson told me, hiding crackers and fruit in her backpack. When I asked her about it, she said it was for when she had to go. That evening, I found Emma packing her jewelry box with small treasures, a photo of our family, her favorite hair clip, $1 in quarters. "What are you doing, sweetheart?" "Getting ready," she said matter-of-factly. "For what?" She looked at me with those blue eyes, Melinda's eyes, and said, "For when my other mommy comes. I want to be ready, so she doesn't have to wait." I pulled her into my lap. "Emma, honey, no one's taking you anywhere. You're safe here." "But she's so sad in my dreams. She needs me." What if I told you those weren't just dreams?" Emma went very still. "What do you mean?" "What if there really was a lady with red hair who loved you very much?" "Is she real? Can I meet her?" The hope in her voice broke me. "Would you want to?" "Yes." "But..." She clutched my shirt. "I wouldn't have to leave you, would I? You're my mommy too." From the mouths of babes comes the most impossible wisdom. 3 days later, the private investigator called. "Mrs. Matthews, I've found some interesting information about Dr. Evan Radley." "Who?" "He was the attending physician the night your daughter was born. He was quietly dismissed from St. Mary's 2 months later. I've discovered he was running a side business, illegal adoptions. He'd identify vulnerable mothers and wealthy families, then facilitate transfers." "Transfers?" "Baby swapping, Mrs. Matthews. Your mother-in-law, Margaret Matthews, made several large deposits to an offshore account linked to Dr. Radley in March 2018. There it was. Proof. There's more," the investigator continued. "I found 3 other cases with suspicious circumstances at St. Mary's during Radley's tenure. Your case isn't isolated. Other families are living with the wrong children? Potentially. Though yours is the only one where the biological mother filed a complaint." That night, I made a decision. I called Melinda. "I want you to meet her. Not officially. Just meet her. See her." The silence was long then. "When?" "Saturday. The park on Elm Street. We'll be at the playground around 10. "Olivia, thank you. Thank you for not running. For not hiding from this." "She dreams about you," I said softly. "She's been dreaming about you all along." Saturday morning arrived gray and humid, matching the weight in my chest. Emma wore her favorite purple dress, the one with pockets she could fill with treasures. She didn't know we were meeting anyone special. I'd simply said we were going to the park. I saw Melinda before she saw us. She stood by the swings, hands shoved in her pockets, looking like she might bolt at any moment. When she spotted Emma on the slide, her whole body went rigid, then seemed to collapse in on itself. "Mommy, watch," Emma called, sliding down backwards, her laugh carrying across the playground. Melinda's hand went to her mouth. That laugh, she'd probably imagined it 1,000 times. I walked over to her while Emma played. "Thank you for coming." "She's beautiful," Melinda whispered. "She looks happy." She is happy. Most of the time. But lately, she's been feeling something's missing. We sat on a bench, watching Emma spin on the merry-go-round. After a few minutes, Emma ran over, breathless and bright-eyed. "Mommy, push me on the swings?" "In a minute, sweetheart. This is my friend, Melinda." Emma looked at Melinda with those startling blue eyes, the same eyes looking back at her. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Emma tilted her head. "You have red hair, like the lady in my dreams." Melinda's voice broke. "You dream about someone with red hair?" "She sings to me, a song about the moon." Without hesitation, Melinda began to hum, the same melody Emma had hummed to me days ago. Emma's eyes went wide. "You know it. You know my song. I used to sing it to a little girl once, a long time ago." Emma stepped closer, studying Melinda's face with the intensity only children possess. Were you sad when you lost her? Every day. Maybe you'll find her again. Maybe I already have. Emma smiled, then grabbed Melinda's hand. Come swing with us. I watched them together. The mother who'd lost everything and the child who didn't know she'd been lost. Emma chatted freely, showing Melinda how high she could swing, demonstrating her cartwheel, sharing elaborate stories about her imaginary friend. And Melinda absorbed every word, every gesture, like someone dying of thirst finally finding water. When it was time to leave, Emma hugged Melinda goodbye without prompting. Will I see you again? Melinda looked at me over Emma's head, the question clear in her eyes. Yes, I said. You'll see her again. That night, everything exploded. Daniel had been at his mother's house all day. When he came home, his face was stone. You let her meet Emma. Clara told me. Clara had no right.
She's worried about you.
About what you're doing to our family. Our family is built on a lie, Daniel. Our family is built on love. He slammed his hand on the counter. We loved Emma from the moment we held her. We've given her everything. Everything except the truth. Everything except her real mother. You are her real mother. No, I'm the mother who benefited from your mother's crime. That stopped him cold. What are you talking about? I showed him the investigator's report. The offshore accounts, Dr. Radley's dismissal, the pattern of suspicious adoptions. Daniel read it twice, his face growing paler with each page. This can't be right. Call Margaret. Ask her yourself.
He did.
I watched him dial, watched his hands shake as he put it on speaker. Daniel, darling, how? Mom, I need you to tell me the truth. About Emma. About what happened when she was born. The pause was damning. I don't know what you mean. Mom, please. Olivia knows about Dr. Radley. About the money transfers. Just tell me the truth. Margaret's voice, when it came, was cold and controlled. I protected our family. You were falling apart, Olivia nearly died, and that baby, your baby, wasn't going to make it. I made a decision. You stole someone else's child? I saved you. Both of you. That girl was a drug addict. She was clean for 2 years. She was nobody. A grocery store clerk with no family, no support system. That baby would have ended up in foster care anyway. That wasn't your decision to make, wasn't it? You couldn't even stay at the hospital, Daniel. You ran away to a hotel while your wife was dying. Someone had to be strong. Someone had to ensure our family survived. Daniel hung up without another word. We sat in silence, the weight of 6 years of deception crushing us both. 2 days later, child services arrived. Someone, we never found out who, had reported the situation. 2 social workers stood at our door with serious expressions and official badges. We've received concerning information about the custody of the minor child residing here. We need to investigate. What followed was a nightmare. Emma was interviewed separately, asked questions about her dreams, her memories, whether she felt safe. Daniel and I were questioned extensively. Our home was inspected. And then came the words that shattered everything. Given the unusual circumstances and pending investigation, we believe it's in the child's best interest to be placed in temporary foster care until custody can be legally determined. No, I grabbed Emma as she ran to me, terrified. You can't take her, Mrs. Matthews. This is temporary. But with conflicting custody claims and evidence of potential trafficking. We didn't know. Daniel pleaded. We thought she was ours, but it didn't matter. They had a court order. Emma screamed as they carried her out. Mommy, Daddy, don't let them take me. I'll be good. I'll stop having the dreams. Please. I collapsed on the front lawn, Daniel holding me as we watched our daughter, not our daughter, driven away in a strange car, her terrified face pressed against the back window. The emergency custody hearing was scheduled for the following week. Melinda was granted supervised visitation in the interim. She called me after her first visit. She won't eat, Melinda said, crying. She just holds that stuffed bunny I gave her and asks for you. She's traumatized. This is too much, too fast. I know. I never wanted this. I just wanted to know she was alive. We need to work together. For Emma. Luna. For her. Whatever her name is, she's a little girl who's scared and confused. We hired lawyers, Daniel and I one team, Melinda another. But in a surprising move, we asked for a meeting. All of us, with our lawyers, before the hearing. What are you proposing? Melinda's lawyer asked. Shared custody, I said, ignoring my lawyer's sharp intake of breath. Legal recognition of Melinda as Emma's biological mother, but acknowledgement of our role as her psychological parents. That's irregular. This entire situation is irregular, Daniel interrupted. But Emma, Luna, she needs all of us. She can't lose the only parent she's known, but she deserves to know her biological mother. Melinda was crying. You do that? You'd share her? She already loves you, I said. In her dreams, in her heart, she's been looking for you. But she loves us too. Why should she have to choose? The lawyers exchanged glances. This wasn't how custody battles usually went. Meanwhile, the investigation into Margaret Matthews and Dr. Radley expanded. 2 more families came forward with suspicions about their children's births at St. Mary's. The FBI got involved. Margaret was arrested on charges of conspiracy to commit kidnapping and fraud. Daniel was devastated. My own mother. How could she? She thought she was protecting you. She was protecting herself. Her image. Her perfect family. The day before the hearing, Emma was allowed a supervised visit with us. She ran into our arms, clinging desperately. Are you sending me away forever? She asked.
No, baby.
Never. We're trying to figure out a way for you to have all the people who love you. The red-hair lady, Melinda, she's nice. She knows my moon song. But I want to come home. What if, Daniel said carefully, you could have 2 homes? Like some kids whose parents live in different houses. Emma considered this. Would I have 2 bedrooms? Yes. 2 birthdays? Maybe. I laughed through my tears. And everyone would love me? Everyone already loves you, sweetheart. So much that we're all trying to find a way to share you. She was quiet for a moment then. The judge person. Can I talk to them? Tell them what I want. Yes, baby. You can. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, more like a conference room than the grand halls of justice you see on TV. Emma sat between child advocates, coloring in a book, but clearly listening to everything. Melinda sat across from us, her hands folded so tightly her knuckles were white. Daniel held my hand under the table, both of us barely breathing. Judge Patricia Reeves was known for unconventional solutions in family court. We'd all hoped that reputation would work in our favor. I've reviewed all the documentation, she began. The DNA tests, the investigation reports, the psychological evaluations. This is, without question, one of the most unusual cases I've encountered in 20 years. She looked at each of us in turn. We have a child who was illegally removed from her biological mother at birth and placed with a family who believed her to be their biological child. We have 6 years of bonding, of family formation, built on a deception, but a deception unknown to the adoptive parents. Your Honor, Melinda's lawyer began, my client's rights are absolutely valid, the judge agreed. Ms. Hughes was the victim of a terrible crime. Her child was stolen from her. But she looked at Emma, still coloring but now with slower, deliberate strokes. We also have a child who has known only one set of parents for 6 years. The trauma of complete separation would be significant. Which is why we're proposing shared custody, my lawyer interjected. Yes, I've seen your proposal. It's unusual but not without precedent. However, I'd like to hear from Emma. The room went silent. Emma looked up from her coloring book, then walked to the chair beside the judge, with surprising composure. Hi, Emma, Judge Reeves said gently. I'm trying to make some big decisions about where you'll live and who will take care of you. Can you help me understand what you want? Emma nodded. I want my mommy and daddy. But what, sweetheart? The lady with red hair, Melinda? She's important too. She's the one for my dreams. The one who lost me. How do you know she lost you? Emma tilted her head, considering. I just know. Like how you know the sun is warm even when you're inside. She feels like a missing piece. So what would make you happiest? Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then, can I show you something? She returned to the table and picked up her coloring book, bringing it to the judge. She'd drawn a picture, stick figures, but clear enough. Two women holding hands with a little girl between them. A man stood slightly behind, his hand on the little girl's shoulder. Above them all, she'd drawn a heart. This, Emma said simply. This would make me happy. Judge Reeves studied the picture, then looked at all of us. From the mouths of babes, she murmured. There was a brief recess. When we returned, Judge Reeves had made her decision. In the matter of custody for the minor child, I'm issuing an unprecedented but, I believe, necessary ruling. Joint legal custody will be awarded to both Melinda Hughes, as the biological mother whose rights were violated, and to Olivia and Daniel Matthews, as the psychological parents who have raised this child. Gasps around the room. The judge continued. The primary residence will remain with the Matthews family for stability, with Ms. Hughes having substantial visitation rights every weekend, alternating holidays, and extended summer periods. This will increase over time as the child adjusts. Furthermore, she looked at Margaret Matthews' lawyer, who was present for the criminal implications. Any financial restitution from the criminal proceedings will be placed in trust for the child's education and welfare. Most importantly, the judge looked at Emma. This arrangement will be reviewed every 6 months with input from the child and family therapists. The goal is not to divide this child, but to expand her circle of love and support. She paused, then added, I'm also ordering family therapy for all parties. This situation arose from terrible deception, but it's clear that love, not malice, motivates everyone now involved. Emma or Luna, or whatever name she chooses to be called, deserves to benefit from all that love. Your Honor, Emma piped up. Can I be both? Emma Luna? The judge smiled. You can be whoever you want to be, sweetheart. The relief in the room was palpable. It wasn't perfect. How could it be? But it was something. Outside the courthouse, we all stood awkwardly, unsure how to proceed. Then Emma took charge, grabbing Melinda's hand in mine, pulling us together. We need rules, she announced. Like, Melinda can't give me better birthday presents than Mommy and Daddy, because that's not fair. And everyone has to come to my school plays. And nobody can say bad things about anybody else. Those sound like good rules. Melinda laughed through her tears. And, Emma continued very seriously, everybody has to promise to love each other. Not like married love, but like family love. Because that's what we are now, right? A really big, weird family? Daniel knelt beside her. The weirdest. The most complicated. I added. The most special, Melinda finished. 6 months later, I stood in what had been our guest room, now Emma's room at Melinda's house for weekend visits. Melinda and I had been painting it together. Purple, of course, Emma's favorite color. I never thought I'd be doing this, Melinda said, stepping back to examine our work. Decorating my daughter's room with the woman who raised her. I never thought I'd be sharing my daughter with her biological mother. But here we are. Here we are. Emma burst in, paint splattered from helping Daniel with the baseboards. It's perfect. Just like at home but different. She'd taken to calling both places home. Home with Mommy and Daddy and home with Melinda. The transition hadn't been seamless. There were nightmares, confusion, some regression. But kids are remarkably adaptable when the adults around them act with love instead of possession. The investigation into the hospital scandal had expanded nationwide. 17 families had been affected by Dr. Radley's scheme. Support groups formed. Some families, like ours, found ways to blend. Others couldn't bridge the gap. Margaret was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Daniel visited her once, to tell her that Emma was happy and loved, and that was the only goodbye she'd get. Olivia? Melinda said one evening as we watched Emma play at the park, our park, where it all began. Thank you. For what? For not running when you found out. For not hiding her from me. For being brave enough to share her. She was never mine to keep, I said. But she wasn't just yours to take back, either. She's her own person. She chose this. A 6-year-old chose this? A 6-year-old who knew she needed all of us. Who refused to let go of any of the people who loved her. Emma ran over, breathless and bright. Mommy, Melinda, watch what I can do. She cartwheeled across the grass, poorly but enthusiastically, and we cheered like she'd won Olympic gold. That night, as I tucked Emma into bed, it was a Tuesday, our night, she asked, Mommy, do you think other kids have families like ours? Every family is different, sweetheart. But ours is extra different. Yes, I agreed. Ours is extra different. Good, she said, settling into her pillows. Normal is boring. I kissed her forehead. My daughter, not my daughter, completely my daughter in all the ways that mattered. Mommy, she said as I reached the door. I'm glad the test told the truth. Even though it was scary and sad. Because now nobody has to have bad dreams anymore. No more bad dreams? Nope. Melinda doesn't dream about losing me, because she found me. You and Daddy don't worry about the secret because it's not a secret anymore. And I don't dream about the red-hair lady, because she's real and she's here. What do you dream about now? Emma smiled sleepily. Tomorrow. I dream about tomorrow. I closed her door softly, leaving it cracked just how she liked it. Down the hall, Daniel was in his office, video chatting with his therapist. We were all in therapy, individual couples, family, learning how to be this new thing we'd become. My phone buzzed. A text from Melinda. Thank you for the photos from today. Same time Sunday for the zoo. I replied, we'll be there. Because that's what we were now. Not a broken family or a blended family or a complicated legal arrangement. We were Emma Luna's family, all of us, together, imperfect and extraordinary. I thought about the DNA test that started everything, that small cotton swab that unraveled 6 years of certainty. It had destroyed one family structure only to create another, stranger and more beautiful than anything we could have imagined. In her sleep, Emma hummed the moon song, Melinda's song, now all of ours. Tomorrow she'd wake up in her purple bedroom, eat breakfast with her mommy and daddy, go to school where she was still just Emma Matthews, and know that across town, another mother loved her just as fiercely. It wasn't the life any of us had planned. But as Emma said, normal is boring. And love, real love, doesn't care about DNA tests or legal documents or conventional family structures. Love just expands to fill whatever space you give it, creating something new and impossible and absolutely perfect in its imperfection. The truth had set us all free. Not free from each other, but free to love without limits, without lies, without the weight of secrets. Free to be exactly who we were, Emma Luna's village, her constellation of care, her proof that sometimes the most broken things create the most beautiful patterns when you piece them back together. I'm writing this on Emma Luna's 8th birthday. Yes, we kept both names. She signs her school papers Emma L. Matthews, but insists the L stands for love rather than Luna, because, as she says, I'm made of love from everybody. The birthday party is in an hour. A joint production. Melinda made the cake. She's the better baker. Daniel's handling decorations. He's surprisingly artistic, and I'm managing the chaos, my specialty. Clara's bringing her twins, who've adopted Melinda as another aunt without question. The other parents at school don't quite know what to make of us. The woman who introduces herself as Emma's mom at pickup, the other woman who does the same at drop-off, both clearly not sisters or partners, both equally involved. We've stopped explaining. Emma just tells anyone who asks that she's extra lucky. Daniel and I survived. Our marriage, built on one foundation, had to be demolished and rebuilt on another. But we're stronger for it. We've learned that truth, however painful, creates more space for love than lies ever could. Melinda started dating someone last year, a kind man named James who accepts our bizarre arrangement with grace. He's coming to the party too, because Emma insisted. He makes Melinda smile, she said. We need all the smile makers we can get. Margaret wrote from prison last month. Daniel didn't open the letter, but Emma asked to keep it. For someday, she said. when I'm ready to understand why people do bad things for love. The investigation changed laws in 3 states about hospital protocols and infant security. Dr. Radley will never practice medicine again. Small victories from enormous pain. But today isn't about pain. It's about a little girl who gets 2 birthday parties, Melinda threw hers last weekend, who has a bedroom in 2 houses, who draws family portraits that need extra-large paper to fit everyone in. Mommy, Emma calls from downstairs. Melinda's here with the cake. It has 2 unicorns because she said I'm twice as special. I closed this journal. My therapist suggested writing it all down, and maybe someday Emma will want to read it. To understand how she came to be loved by so many, how truth can shatter and heal simultaneously, how families aren't always what they seem but are exactly what they're meant to be. The doorbell rings. The guests are arriving. Our strange, beautiful, impossible life continues. And somewhere, in whatever space exists between dreams and memory, a baby with brown eyes who lived for only a week knows that her brief existence created this abundance of love. That her loss gave her parents another daughter to cherish. That even death can be transformed into life when people choose love over law, courage over convention, truth over comfortable lies. Happy birthday, Emma Luna. You are the moon that pulled the tides of our lives into new patterns. You are the question that became its own answer. You are ours and hers and your own. You are loved beyond measure, beyond reason, beyond the limits of what any DNA test could ever reveal. If you discovered the child you've loved for years wasn't biologically yours, would you have the courage to share them with their real mother? Or would you run? Like this video if you believe love is stronger than DNA, and subscribe for more stories that challenge everything we think we know about family.